we'll kind of kick this off and introduce ourselves and our team, a little bit about who we are. So Redline Media, we're a small agency. We're kind of spread out all over. We all work remote. I'm on the West Coast. Elizabeth is out in the mountains. Kirby's not with us today, is in New York. So we're a small marketing agency. We primarily focus on digital media, but we also do web design and development, SEO, content strategy, a little bit of own media strategy. And we got started working with music schools a couple of years ago, and got plugged in with Opus 1.io, which is a platform to manage bookings for music schools, and you can set it up to offer like someone the ability to self-book a trial lesson. And we got connected up with a lot of other music schools through a relationship with Opus. So over the past 2 years, we've kind of found ourselves getting a lot more experience in this space, and we've kind of constructed what we feel is kind of the blueprint for how to market music schools online. So that's why we're here today. That's why we're talking to all of you. We hope to share some valuable insights with you that you'll be able to take some of this away and apply this to your own music schools. And certainly, if you want us to do it, you can reach out and talk to us as well. So we hosted a webinar 2 weeks ago. It was more of a general overview on how to approach digital marketing for music schools. We talked about the channels that work, essentially how you kind of get started with that. This is a little bit more of an advanced session. We're going to talk about how to set up and apply conversion tracking to your music schools. We have a couple other webinars planned. I'll talk about that at the end. But let's jump in and chat conversion tracking. So when we think about a digital marketing campaign, right, we're trying to advertise to your audience. We're trying to get them to come to your website. But ultimately, we want people to take some sort of action when they reach your website. And we call that action a conversion, right? This is how we kind of measure success for our campaigns. And if you're not tracking conversions on your campaigns, you're really kind of flying blind in terms of, how effective that campaign is. I mean, sure, there's other KPIs that you can measure, but conversion tracking is really important to kind of evaluate the success of the campaign. If you're running campaigns on both Google and Facebook, you need conversion tracking to tell you, which channel is ultimately driving more results for my business. It can help highlight, which audience responds best to your ads. It can let you know if there's people dropping out of your funnel at some point. It's table stakes for marketing a music school in 2023. It is how you quantify your media investment. So quick little exercise here, and some of you might have seen this in the email. If you have these two campaigns and you are spending $500 in each campaign, and these are your initial results. Campaign A is getting more impressions, more clicks. Which one ultimately performed better? You have no idea because you don't know how many conversions each of these drove. And it very well could be that, a campaign that has lower traffic volume ends up performing a lot better. But you wouldn't know that unless you have conversion tracking in place. We see a lot of, we talk to music schools that come to us, and they talk about, some of the advertising that they do with traditional media, like magazines, or, getting on some sort of email list and look how many impressions that we got and how many eyeballs. I'm like, that doesn't mean anything unless they actually, sign up and enroll a full-time student in your school. So conversion tracking is the primary KPI that we're talking about here, and this is what's really important. When we talk about these different conversion types that we can track, for music schools, we primarily set up 3 conversion actions. The first one is calls, and especially if you're doing campaigns on Google, you can set up call extensions so that people can call you directly from the ad. But also, it's important to have your phone number on your website and set up some sort of way to track that. If you get a lot of mobile traffic to your website, give them a super simple way to just, a button tap to call us. And you can set up conversion tracking so you can measure how many calls are actually coming through from ads. Calls is a great kind of low friction conversion action. It's easy, especially for people on mobile, to kind of take that action and reach out to you. But we find, compared to some of the other conversion actions, we value these a little bit lower than some of the others. And we'll talk about conversion value at the end. That's a really important concept. The other two types of conversions here are forms, getting someone to fill out a lead form, give us your info, we'll get back to you. This is great because once you collect their contact information, you can follow up with them via phone, via email, SMS. They're in your database now. And so we value form submissions a little bit higher than a phone call because you have their contact information. And then finally, I mentioned at the very beginning here, a lot of our clients work with Opus One as a booking engine platform. There's other booking engine platforms out there too, Kyle. If you have someone who comes to your website and then takes that next step and says, yes, I'm ready to book a lesson right now, like that is great. Like a really high percentage of those are probably going to turn into a full-time student, because that's someone who is very interested in music lessons, interested in your school, and wants to take that first step and give you guys a try. It's generally a little bit harder to get bookings, but that's why we value them so high, is because they're so high intent. So we like to try and apply at least these three types. And sometimes we work with music schools who have a specific program that they're offering with some sort of unique conversion action. All of this can be tracked. You can set up conversion tracking around any of these. It's pretty simple. That's a lie. It's maybe a little bit complicated, but I'm going to show you how we do this using Google Tag Manager. If you're not familiar with Google Tag Manager, it's a free platform from Google that it's a code snippet you install on your website. So it sits on every page of your website. And what Tag Manager allows us to do is deploy our full suite of conversion tags very quickly and easily. And it provides kind of a central place to sort of manage all of the tracking and tagging. And what's really cool about Tag Manager is you set up all your different tags, and these can be, your page view tags like Google Analytics that sits on every page, or it can be specific conversion event tags that fire on specific actions. And so when we set up Tag Manager, we have this concept of both tags and triggers. Triggers is the action that causes a tag to fire. And it's very simple in Tag Manager to set this up. I'll show you an example right here. So this is the Google Tag Manager interface. You can see here there's tags and triggers just over here in the left sidebar. You can also get pretty advanced with variables. We won't go into that today, but just to kind of highlight how this kind of works, these are all our different tags that we've got set up. And you have Google Analytics event tags, you've got Google Ads conversion tags, you've got Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram event tags, and each of these tags are set up to fire on a specific trigger. Trigger is some sort of action. So, for example, let's use the Google Ad conversion, request info form. This is the tag configuration, and so there's some built-in tags for most of the Google products. You can also set up any sort of custom HTML tag to fire. And we have this triggered on, we have two different forms. So we have a trigger for each of these that both fire the same tag. You can also look at this if you go over to your triggers, and you can kind of see for each of these triggers, how many tags are they attached to. So that click to call tag, you're measuring how many people hit that, call now button. Here's the trigger configuration. This basically says, hey, we want to fire this set of tags whenever someone clicks on any link on our website that contains the TEL piece of the string, essentially a phone number. And when someone clicks on one of those, we want to fire our Google Analytics tag. We want to fire our Google Ads tag. We want to fire our Facebook tag. And so you can get these pretty complex setups all managed through Tag Manager. That way you're never going into your site code and trying to tweak and edit things. It gives you a great central place to sort of manage everything, and really simplifies the whole process. So Google Tag Manager is, I think, pretty essential if you're trying to roll out a pretty full suite of conversion events. You can do this manually without Tag Manager, but I wouldn't recommend it. Just make it easy on yourself. Use Tag Manager. Okay, so I kind of highlighted there, for the most part, we've got 3 sets of tags. We fire Google Analytics tags, and then we fire our conversion tags for our primary ad platforms, which is Google Ads and Facebook. For Google Analytics, there's been some changes recently. Google's rolling out a new product called GA4. Their old product, which was around for 12 plus years, was called Universal Analytics. You might see it as UA sometimes, but yeah, Google is sunsetting their old analytics product this summer. GA4, they've been pushing on this rollout for the past year or so. So looking forward to the future, if we're tracking our conversions in GA4, everything in Google Analytics is an event. So if someone clicks on an ad and lands on your website, that first page view is an event. We can also pass any sort of custom events we want into Google Analytics that represent our conversion actions. So in this example here, you can see in the screenshot, we've got our click to call, we've got our form submits, and then we have our actual booking event. And I'll show you how we set that up here in Google Analytics. So this is GA4. We're looking just at the report section here, and we can kind of see all the different events that are getting tracked. And not all of these events are necessarily conversion events. That's an important distinction. You can set up and basically tell Google which events you want to designate as conversion events. So first, how do we get these events into Google Analytics? I'm going to go back to Tag Manager here. Just like I showed you with one of the ad conversion tags, you can set up a GA4 event tag, like click to call, connect it to your call trigger. And then with Google GA4, you can just pass in any kind of event name you want. So this is totally custom. Set it up however you want, call this whatever you want, but it's going to show up like contact click to call in Google Analytics right here as an event. From there, what you want to do is you want to designate these as conversion events. It's really simple. Just go over to your admin panel right here. You're going to want to pull up your events in the settings here, and you can see here's all the different events that Google Analytics is collecting. Just hit this toggle right here, and this turns it into a conversion event. And what that lets you do, it's primarily for reporting purposes. When you go back into your reports, say you wanted to look at like an acquisition report and see where my traffic is coming from, and among those traffic sources, paid social, direct, paid search, which channel is driving those conversions. And so you can see here, since we've marked off our conversion events, they're going to show up in this column here as conversions. And so you can say, okay, organic drove 33 conversions this month, paid search drove 28, paid social drove 10. And you can actually see which specific events those are. So if I wanted to look at the call events, how many people are actually calling, you can just filter that right there, and you can see how many calls each of these channels drove. So that's Google Analytics. It's we always, when we set up media campaigns, it's most important that we get those conversion events back to the ad console so that we can optimize our campaigns. But we always advocate for tracking everything in Google Analytics as well, because it's a second source of truth, and it gives you more insight into all of your traffic, not just the traffic that's coming from your ads. So that's how we set it up for Google Analytics. Also, if you have questions on this stuff, we're going to take questions at the end. So feel free to interrupt me, and if you got a question on anything here or at the end, we're going to provide some time for a Q&A. So don't worry, you can get to those. Okay, the next platform is Google Ads. If you attended our first webinar, you know that this is really bread and butter for music schools, non-brand search campaigns, people searching for piano lessons near me, anything like that. Google Ads is really important. And so to set up conversions in Google Ads, I'll show you how to set up native conversions here in Google Ads. I will note you can import those conversion events that I just showed you from Google Analytics and tie those to Google Ads and say just optimize for these conversion events. We still like to set up native Google Ads conversions because you have a little bit more flexibility over how you configure the attribution window. So here's how we would do that. In Google Ads, if you go up to Tools and Settings right here and go over to your measurement column and click on Conversions, you'll get taken to this screen. And within Google Ads, you can just right up at the top here, this blue New Conversion Action button. Like I mentioned, you can import a conversion from Google Analytics, but we want to set up a website conversion. These are conversions that happen on the site, right? Someone clicking a phone call button or filling out a lead form or booking something through your booking engine. So we want to set up a website conversion. We can set up, I wish Google gave us a way to skip this. This is kind of new. You know, we can scan the website to see if, you know, you have a Google ad tag in there, and it kind of gives you like an easy way to, you know, apply conversion actions if it already has, you know, some tags on the website. But we're going to just go and add conversion actions manually using code. That's fine. In the conversion action details screen here, you can categorize these. These don't materially matter so much, but try and categorize these appropriately. Like, you know, for any type of phone call, we usually categorize that as a contact. Submit lead form is pretty self-explanatory. Book appointment, pretty self-explanatory. So say this is a form submission, we'd set this up as a submit lead form. You can, you know, enter a conversion name here, request info form, whatever form that is. If you want to track unique forms, you can set up multiple actions here. For conversion value, we'll get into this at the end. You can apply a specific value to this conversion. You can also just count conversion volume and say, don't count this with the value. You can just, you know, every time a form submit goes through, that's a count of 1. And you can actually specify here, do we want to count everything? If it's purchases, you generally want to count everything, but if it's like a form submit, you only really want to count the first one. If someone submits the form, you know, 3 or 4 times, that's not really that valuable. It's really the first submission. And then, like I mentioned, you have some control over the attribution window. This is essentially how far back Google Ads will look to give someone credit for a conversion action. So say they clicked on an ad 20 days ago, and then they come back to your website and fill out the form. It's within the 30-day window. Google Ads will count it and apply it to that campaign that drove that conversion. But outside the 30-day window, then it wouldn't count it. So this is flexible. You can change this. And then we always leave attribution model as data-driven now. So I won't save this conversion. I'm just going to cancel out of this. But going back to Tag Manager, that's going to give you a conversion label, which is just a unique string. It's an ID. And then when you set up your Google Ads conversions, you go in here and you paste in that conversion ID and that conversion label. And you can also pass the value through with Tag Manager. So that's how we set up Google Ads conversions. Again, you can import Google Analytics conversions, but I do recommend setting up specific conversion actions for Google Ads. Deploy that in Tag Manager. It is pretty simple and straightforward. And it gives you a lot more control if you deploy these within Google Ads. Finally, we'll talk about conversions on Meta, Facebook's ad platform. This works a little bit differently than the Google products in that Facebook has what they call standard events. And this is kind of similar to what we just saw in Google Ads, where we're able to select like the category of that conversion action. You can pass custom conversion events into Facebook but your reporting options are really limited on there. So we generally recommend that you use one of these standard pixel events. And so if you just Google like Facebook pixel standard events or metapixel standard events, you'll find this support article by Facebook. But this kind of highlights, if you want to track a conversion in Facebook, you should categorize that as one of these kind of pre-built events that Facebook supports right here. And they support most common conversion events. And what we typically set up is for a phone call or an email, we just track that as a contact event. If someone fills out a lead form, we just track that as the lead event. And then when someone goes and books like a trial lesson or something like that, we'll generally use complete registration, not purchase. And I'll come back to this in a second why we don't use purchase. So how you actually deploy this stuff is, I'll go back to Google Tag Manager and show you here. Google supports their Google products like Google Ads and Google Analytics out of the box without really too much trouble. With Facebook, it's just a custom HTML tag, and so you're just going to paste in the conversion event here. So I'll use an example here: purchase trial lesson. It's just a custom little HTML script, and you can kind of see right there. Here's start trial. For this one, we're actually using start trial, not complete registration. I lied. And then we also track secondarily a purchase event. I'm going to come back to this and show you why we do this, but it's pretty simple. So you just fire the start trial event. You need to make sure that you also have the Facebook pixel installed on your site. That applies to everything. So for Facebook, for Google Ads, for Google Analytics, you also need, in addition to all these conversion events, you need your standard page view pixel that fires on every page. So like here's our Facebook pixel, and you can kind of see we've got it firing on just a standard page view. So it fires on every single page. And then when someone does a conversion action, then you can fire it on the info form submit, and then fire that specific lead event and send that back to Facebook. So again, pick one of these standard events. It's going to make reporting a lot easier a little bit down the road. You can do custom events with Facebook if you want to get really complicated, but I don't recommend it. Okay, so we talked about the three types of conversion events: Google Analytics, Google Ads, Facebook. If you're running ads on another platform like Nextdoor or Yelp, with Google Tag Manager, it's really easy to deploy all those conversion events because you just hook it up to the same triggers that you're firing your Google Ads events off of and your Facebook ads off of. And because you have everything set up in Tag Manager, it makes it really easy to layer on a new channel and deploy that kind of stuff. Okay, so we talked about firing individual events. That's not the end of the story. Certainly, going back to that original example, campaign A had 3 conversion events, campaign B had like 18 conversion events. Yes, conversion volume is good, and directionally it's very important. But I want to introduce this somewhat advanced concept of conversion value. So we talked about those 3 types of events that we typically track. We track when someone calls us, we track when someone submits a lead form, we track when someone ends up booking a lesson. Those all conceptually have different values, right? One is more important to me as a business than another one. I would much rather have someone fill out a lead form or complete booking a trial lesson rather than just getting a phone call. They're all valuable, but some are more valuable than others. And so again, kind of highlighting this example, campaign A has more total conversion volume, but you can kind of see here campaign B has more bookings. And so which one is more valuable? In order to determine that, you can apply some hard data to this and figure this stuff out. And the way that we typically approach this is this idea of figuring out what the lifetime value of a customer is. For every full-time student that you have enrolled, how much revenue do you get from them over the lifetime of their tenure with you at your school? And you can just do some simple math to figure this out. How much is the price of a lesson? How many lessons do they take each month? There are 12 months in a year. This one doesn't change. And then how many years do they typically stick around? I mean, some music schools that we talk to say, we only keep students around for 6 months. Other music schools are like, if it's a kid, they sign up when they're 7 or 8 and they're with us until they're like 13 or 14, and it can be multiple years. So you have this data for your music school. You can plug in the variables here, but ultimately you want to try and calculate what this lifetime value is of a customer. And then from there, you can go back and say, okay, say for example, it's $2,000 is the lifetime value of a student. I know that I can get leads coming through for $100 a lead. Let's use some round numbers so we can work some easy math. And say 50% of those leads turn into full-time students. $100 a lead, 50% turn into students. You're paying $200 in advertising costs to get a full-time student enrolled. That's going to provide $2,000 of value over the lifetime of their tenure with you. $200 in cost for $2,000 in revenue. That's a 10x ROAS. That's great. And so when clients come to us and they ask us, hey, how much should I be spending on ads? That's not really the right question to ask. It's how many students do you want? And how many students can you take on? And you have to factor in your expenses from a business as well. You have to pay your staff, there's overhead and setting up, the lesson rooms, all of this other, expenses, but figure out what that ROAS number. Would you spend, $2 to get $10? Would you spend $5 to get $10? Once we have that ROAS number, we can pretty effectively apply that to campaigns and figure out how to scale. But if you go to our website, we provided this conversion value calculator. All of those metrics that I just showed you here, if you dig those up, feel free just to download this calculator, punch them in. Price of a lesson, lessons per month, average tenure in years. And then for these 3 conversion actions, we typically see if someone actually books a lesson with you, there's a really high chance that they're going to become a full-time student, say 70%. If they fill out a lead form, maybe 20% of those turn into full-time students. For calls, maybe 10% of those. So you have these figures. These are just some ballparks that you can kind of use as a starting place. But once you kind of fill all this stuff out, the values over here on the right side will update. And so in this example, the lifetime value of a student's actually, close to $4,500. And the value of each of these conversion actions then, if someone signs up for a trial lesson and 70% of those turn into full-time students, 70% of 4680 is 3276. So we have values that we can now go back to our ad platforms and plug these in and say, hey, Google, when someone who I just said, hey, Google, my phone like fired up. Hey, Facebook. Oh, shush. Hey, Facebook, when someone goes and clicks on an ad and then books a lesson, I want you to know as the ad platform that value to me was $3,200. And so we can set up conversion value tracking within Tag Manager and within the ad consoles. And so that's why I was going back to, say, our meta events here. In addition to firing this event, so we can just count the number of conversions. For all our conversion events, we also fire this purchase event with a value. And this is different for each school, but it allows us to figure out, okay, if we spend X amount of dollars and we get Y amount of dollars in conversion value back, now we can calculate our return on ad spend. How do we quantify our media investment? We know exactly how much we're spending, and we know exactly how much we're getting back in revenue. And that's really important. And so if we apply those kind of conversion values in that example that I gave here, you can see, okay, because we value bookings so much higher, campaign B, even though the total conversion volume was lower, we got more conversion value out of these conversions. And I talk about ROAS, and this is a dashboard that we set up for our clients. It's really easy then to quantify, if we're measuring conversion value, how much we spend, how much value do we get back, and what sort of return on ad spend is that. And that's really powerful. And, you know, typically the music schools that we work with, we see anywhere from, I would say with most campaigns, it's about a 4 to 8x return. In this example, this is Charge, who's here on the call. This is his music school. We've been really successful. We're seeing like 10x. Honestly, I think in the last like week or two, it's been like 11 or 12x ROAS. We're getting really great results. But you wouldn't know that unless you go through all this work and you set up this conversion tracking and you set up these conversion values so that you can quantify very precisely what sort of return you get on your ad spend. And that's ultimately what's going to drive, you know, your marketing decisions and your budgets. If you start to, you know, look at things from a ROAS perspective, what sort of return on investment am I getting from my Google campaigns? What sort of return am I getting from my Facebook campaigns? That's going to inform where you start to put your marketing dollars. And you can apply this to any of the major digital platforms. So that's the big takeaway that I want you all to leave with. Start thinking about how you quantify your return on your ad spend. And if you follow this whole process and implement all this conversion tracking, you can quantify that. It's pretty easy. We'll take questions here in a second, but I just want to give you guys a heads up. We have a couple upcoming webinars. In 2 weeks, we're going to talk about ad creative and what we see typically work for music schools. Some of it's pretty straightforward, but some of it's not quite what you think. So we'll go into a lot of examples on how to produce this type of creative, what type of ads do people respond to best, ways to do creative testing. And then next month, we'll touch on the landing page experience. And once you get someone to click on the ad, what sort of experience do they get on the landing page? All right, so we'll open it up to Q&A. I know that might have been a lot, but did that all make sense? Does anyone have any questions on any of that? You can unmute yourself and just shout at me, or there's a little chat function in the bottom right corner of your window. There's a little chat icon. You can just punch that in. Charge, you got any questions?
No, I don't have any questions, but if anybody has questions for somebody who hires these people, I'm here. Feel free.
Cool. Well, we'll send out a recording of this webinar to everyone's email, so you can go back and reference everything that we talked about. And of course, if you need help with this stuff, feel free to reach out to us. Just hello@redblindmedia.com. We're happy to chat. But yeah, this is there's no secret sauce here. This is kind of the same process that we employ for all of our clients. We're sharing it with you today. I think it's really important to set up this kind of stuff to get your conversions tracked, to view your return on your investment, and then go make some smart marketing decisions. So appreciate everyone's time. Thank you all for jumping on. We hope to see you at the next one.
Thank you, Red Blind Media. You guys rock.
Thanks everyone.
Guys.